Well, hey friends, what is up? Boy, this is going to be fun. This turned into an exciting week quick. Facebook made a huge announcement and man, I'm excited to talk about it. We're going to jump in here in a second, let everybody kind of jump on live. I wanted to make a couple quick announcements. One, this is a conversation that we've been really having since this summer in our church marketers group. So if you've been a part of the church marketers group, you know we've been talking about what Facebook has been doing. And if you're not a part of the church marketers group, be sure you jump in there because we really go more in depth in there on these type of topics. So shout out to those of you who are in that group because this is really a kind of a carryover of a conversation we've been having for a while. The second thing is we just launched our Easter resource, Rethinking Easter, really to help churches have their best Easter yet. Man, I'm super pumped about that. One of the things, don't tell anybody, but if you jump in the Easter resource completely free, we're going to give you people who are a part of that some free access to Church Marketing University as well during that to help you have an all-encompassing plan for your church going into Easter, but don't tell anybody. So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're interested in the Easter deal, churchmarketinguniversity.com/Easter. If you are interested in going deeper in this topic and kicking around ideas, Facebook.com, just go to search church marketers and you can jump in the group that way as well. But boy, oh boy, Facebook made a huge announcement. And yeah, I like what Kai was saying, let's go Chicken Little, because some people are going to look at this announcement and say, oh my word, the sky is falling. Facebook is essentially dead to me if it were a church page. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll catch you up on the news here shortly. But the good news is I want to try to help churches look at this and actually see that this could be a huge benefit. This could be a huge positive if you're actually looking at it the right way. So that's going to be my take, just to kind of give you a quick snapshot as where I want to go. I want you guys to see this as a huge opportunity, not like the sky is falling. The second is you'll hear a lot of people who are in the social media space say this is something that has been coming for a while. If you've been paying attention, Facebook has been testing this out. And when we say this, let me jump into my screen here and show you what I'm talking about. So Facebook just basically put out a news article, press release. Mark Zuckerberg also shared his thoughts about the future of where they're going with the news feed. If you follow any of the experts out there, like Social Media Examiner, Michael Stelzner, did a fantastic live late last night about what this means for businesses. He's a person, thought leader I really respect. So I've posted that link in the Church Marketers group. So if you want it kind of what businesses are thinking, you can check that out as well. But essentially, Facebook, if you remember back in the summer of last year, Mark Zuckerberg says we're changing the mission of Facebook. Facebook is going to be all about bringing people closer together. That's when we started saying, hey guys, really the future of Facebook is probably going to be in groups. It's for churches, it's going to be a lot about groups. And so we started talking about that. What does that mean? And really, I'm kind of a believer, to summarize my thoughts, is that a Facebook group is really the new page, if you will. Like what we used to think of a page is now actually a group, because the whole goal and point of Facebook is changing, and the vision is changing to bring people closer together. And that really happens for a lot of churches in and around groups. And so what this means, and I would encourage you, we'll put a link, or if somebody who's watching can put a link to this, the big press release. I'd encourage you to read Mark's thoughts on this, of why they're doing this, what that is going to mean. The article really goes into a lot of good detail of their thought process, why they've been testing this out. But essentially, the short of it is that they're really going to be getting rid of a lot of content from pages in the newsfeed. And the goal is, the idea is, the people at Facebook really want people to love their platform. And what they're seeing is when people go to Facebook, if it's just a bunch of noise from businesses and pages and spammers, people don't love going to Facebook. So they're seeing the writing on the wall that if Facebook keeps going that route, that they're no longer going to be a platform that is where people want to go spend time. And so the opposite is also true. What they're seeing in their research is why people really love Facebook is because they can go connect with friends and family, community, have conversations. If you watch the video, it's really interesting because what down here in the video in the article, really the whole goal on this angle is they want Facebook to be a place of thoughtfulness. They really want I think with our political climate, our culture, social media can become this like back and forth of backbiting, and it's not fun. So they're saying like, man, younger people aren't going to want to be a part of this. Other people are going to want to abandon this. So they've got to change things up if they want to exist for the long term. The other kind of angle, now that's the kind of the warm and fuzzy like press release angle that you'll get from Facebook. I think the other thing is if you want to understand Facebook, you have to understand how they make money. Okay, so when they make money when users spend time on their platform. So if people love their platform, that means Facebook has a bright future and will continue to make a ton of money. But if people don't like spending time on their platform, then their financing model is basically dead. So if you follow the money, one of the things as a church you can think through, really if you help Facebook make money, you will get a ton of reach. And I'll explain what that means. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but if you understand how Facebook makes money and you play that game, your church can have a ton of reach. So here's why I want to convince you that this is an opportunity, maybe not necessarily that the sky is falling. And that's because Facebook is shifting to really put an emphasis on relationships, thoughtfulness, bringing people together, family and friends, in away from spamming, announcements, businesses, just putting a whole bunch of posts out there. And here's what the church needs to think and rewire our minds to think is that Facebook is a relational platform, a social platform, and not a place for announcements. Unfortunately, the church, I think, has been guilty of this, is we look at Facebook as another place to put announcements. And we just say, hey, well, this is coming up, this is coming up. It's like a church standing with a megaphone just talking about ourselves, talking about our announcements. And that is not what Facebook is designed for. And that's what Facebook is saying. We don't want to have that going on. We want to be a place where people are having conversations. Conversations is a key word in this. People are being thoughtful. People are building relationships, and it's not about announcements. And I would challenge the local church and church leaders to think through this idea that why do people love your church, right? If you were to ask people, what is their favorite thing about your church, what would they say? More than likely, they're going to say, honestly, some people might say, honestly, my favorite thing about the church is eating nachos with my small group on Wednesday and talking about the things of God. That's my favorite thing, right? Like community, close-knit, friends, conversations. You know what they're not going to say is their favorite thing about your church? Announcements. Okay, no one is going to say, you know what I love about my church is the announcement time. I mean, we all know, you're a church leader, you know everybody tunes out during that time. They kind of get out their phone and maybe get on Facebook because that's their least favorite thing probably all about the church is probably the announcement. So why has the church made social media all about the announcements? We've taken the thing that is the least favorite, the least strength, our biggest probably weakness, and we've highlighted it and we've called that social media. That is a fail. So here's where the opportunity is. You know who on this planet is great at building close, tight-knit communities, encouraging people, building relationships, building friendships, sharing the hope of Jesus? You know who is great at that? The local church. That is something that is a huge opportunity, a huge strength. That is one of the things that we should be highlighting all the time. And guess what? Facebook just said, we're going to make our platform all about that. That's going to be our goal. And I would say if your church can rethink the way that you're approaching social media and make it about your strength, about the community, about the conversation, about the relationship, about thoughtfulness, about caring about people and getting to know people, not your announcements, okay? Not the announcements. Then, man, it will be a huge blessing. So I think that is a major shift. And I think if you guys can think through that, it will be a huge blessing. So, real quick, are we having trouble with the audio for you guys? Can you hear me? Because it's going to be really bad if we can't hear me whatsoever. So, if you guys can put give me a thumbs up or say yes, I can hear you, because I'm getting a couple of people who say that they can't hear me. So, let me know in the comments, because that's not going to be good whatsoever. So, as we're waiting on that, so as you're processing that, one of the things, let me see, I can hear, okay, good. So I'll post this as well. We'll post this if you couldn't hear, if you have audio issues, we'll post it on like YouTube and Vimeo and get it out there as well. So I want you to think, if you're thinking through this is a relationship building tool, this is a huge opportunity for your church. Let me give you a little bit of a funny analogy that's been going on in my head. Is let's say that you ran a restaurant, okay, and people love your nachos, okay? They just absolutely, you have the best nachos on the planet. But for whatever reason on social media, you've just decided to talk about your hamburgers, okay? People love your nachos, but you're talking about your hamburgers. So for this analogy, the church, one of the things that we're strong about is building relationships, community, conversations. But on social, we've decided to talk about our announcements, aka our hamburgers. And now if Facebook were saying, hey, guess what? We're going to basically change our platform to talk exclusively about nachos, then your restaurant, if you were heads up, you would say, oh my goodness, this is a huge opportunity. We have the best nachos on the planet, right? But if you're thinking, oh, we just like to talk about hamburgers on social media and Facebook is switching to talk about nachos, you'd be like, well, Facebook's dead to me now, because all we do is talk about hamburgers. I know that's a silly analogy, but that's essentially what Facebook has done. So if you see Facebook as an opportunity for conversations, relationship building, thoughtfulness, getting to meet people in your community, starting those conversations, then what Facebook has done is just giving you a huge advantage, because they're basically saying on the newsfeed is that we're going to get rid of everything else, right? The retailers of the world, the multi-level marketing of the world, some of the spammers, like all that's going to go away in the newsfeed. So you've got now a huge opportunity if you can latch on to the fact that it's all about conversations and relationships and connecting with people. Now the local church has a huge opportunity because the competition just got booted. They just said, we're not going to talk about anything except nachos, and you've got nachos, okay? So that's why I want to say this could be a huge opportunity. This isn't necessarily, now if your church just approaches Facebook with a megaphone, and what Brian Regan, one of my favorite comedians, calls a me monster, where you're just talking about yourself, then no, this is going to kill you. Your Facebook page is going to be dead. If you're just posting graphics that don't start any conversation, if you're auto posting, if you're scheduling out posts, if you're just trying to do things to have activity, but you're not leading the conversations, then your Facebook page is basically going to be dead. You should move on from Facebook. But if your church is committed to saying, we can build relationships, we can build conversation. We're committed to getting to know people and going on a journey with people and seeing Facebook as a place to leverage those conversations in your group and on your page, then Facebook just got a whole lot more interesting for your church, because the competition basically just got booted, and the local church has a huge edge because that's what we're good at. So I want to switch over and show you some of my notes here. So you're going to get some of my raw thoughts on this. And so you're seeing a little bit of the behind the scenes because this news just hit last night. So I've just been taking notes like crazy. So I wanted to throw out there, I think this is an opportunity. I think you need to know how Facebook makes their money. I think you need to think through groups will be big. Groups are the new page, and that's where you need to build tight-knit community. So the things that you're used to maybe doing on the announcement side, you need to do inside of groups, okay? And start that conversation. So if you're posting stuff like you're having a 21 days something or other, or some sort of internal campaign, I think that all needs to go in the groups, and do it in such a way that it builds conversation in the groups. The other thing is you need to think through the see first option. It's something that's mentioned in the press release in the article. What that does, and Facebook in the article specifically says they're still going to allow people to choose the see first option. If you want to go deeper, we have a whole article on Social Church about the see first option, and you can check that out. But what it essentially allows people to do is tell Facebook that they want to see your church's post every single time you post and at the top of their newsfeed. It's called See First. It basically goes around the algorithm and prioritizes your church's post above everything else. And Facebook is saying we're still going to allow that. And again, this is a huge edge for churches. I want you guys to see this as an incredible opportunity, because more than likely people aren't going to go through and choose to see first on Target and Best Buy and again, multi-level marketing. They're not going to choose to see that first, and Facebook's going to get rid of that in the newsfeed, which makes it a huge opportunity. There's going to be a huge deal that if you're the only page that's showing up as see first, they've just gotten rid of all the other noise for you. Do you see how powerful that could be? That honestly, that is incredible. But the flip side of that is your church has to be heads up in driving people to choose the see first option. Again, if you want to go deeper in that, check out that article. I'll give you some ideas. Let me throw out a couple ideas for you right now. One is we're right in the middle of winter, especially if you're in any sort of climate outside of like Florida and California where you could have a snow or ice cancellation. That's a good time to reach out to your congregation and say, hey, I need you to choose the see first option, because if we have to cancel, I want you guys to know about it. I don't want you to show up at church and us not have church. So you've got to give people like reasons like that to choose the see first option. So that is going to be big. You can also use media. You could have people break out their phones during a service and literally walk them through how to do that. There's a lot of ways you can do that. We have a video too that you can use. Let me see if I can play this video. Here's an example of a video that we've done. So it gives you an idea what I'm talking about when we say see first. I really think this is going to be a crucial element for your church moving forward to get page reach, and could be a huge edge for the local church. So let's watch this video that kind of explains a little bit more on this. So let me see.
Hey church, there's now a very important step you can take to make sure you are not missing our Facebook updates. Just open up the Facebook app on your phone, go to the church's page, click the Following button, and choose See First. Again, click Following, then See First. Once you've completed the steps, let us know in the comments. Then tag a friend in the church so they can do it too. Now you will never miss a post.
So that is the see first option. So, and I think doing stuff like that to get it where your church has chosen and told Facebook, this page is important enough for me to see first, then I think that's going to be a huge advantage. So I want you guys to get that. I think that is going to be something really big for Facebook moving forward, for churches to be on Facebook. I don't think so. We're getting a lot of people in the comments thinking, and in the church marketers group, is the Facebook page dead? And I would say no. I think you're going to want to hang on to your page. I think you're going to use it for Facebook ads. I think Facebook ads probably just got a lot more important. Again, that's why Facebook is probably also doing this, because it pushes retailers to have to pay them for ads. So for a lot of larger churches, your ads understanding is probably going to get a little bit more important, and how you do ads is going to be changing too. You're going to have to be probably much more conversational and more strategic on retargeting the pixel and stuff like that. And I know for the smaller church, you're like, oh man, I'm checking out on that front, which hang in there. I know there's a lot to that, but we do a lot of that in the Church Marketing University ads module. So we can walk you through that. It's probably not as complicated as you think, but I wouldn't abandon your page. I think your church could still have an edge actually with this change. Could actually help you if you're paying attention. If you're going to move forward and just do announcements, then kill your page. If you're saying, hey, we can understand this change, we can get people to do the see first, we can start conversations, we're committed to doing more relational type stuff, then this could be actually a huge benefit. I want you guys to see this. This could be a huge benefit for your page. Now, how this works out, I'm not 100% sure, I think Facebook has already been moving this direction. I think for those of us who follow the social media like thoughts and blogs, excuse me, we've been seeing Facebook move this direction for the last 8 months. And so people's reach, even over the last year when Facebook was kind of a few years ago, it was like we posted and everybody saw everything. It was like, awesome, this is awesome. And then over the last year, it was like the reach had gone down to like where when you make a post, only 10% of your audience saw it. And then it was like in the last 8 months, that reach has gone down to like 3 to 1%. So Facebook's just been clamping down on the amount of reach you get as a page. And now it's basically Facebook. You might hear the phrase Facebook zero. At the top of my Evernote, I named this Facebook zero because the reality is for a lot of pages, this has just gone from over the last 5 years, everybody seeing your content to 10% to 5% to 3% to Facebook zero. So, but again, that's if you approach it like it's announcement time. If you approach it like it's relationship building time, this, I think, could be a huge benefit. And then I would start moving people over and getting the tight-knit community going on in your group. Another thing mentioned in the Facebook article is the idea, and let me see if I can switch back over to my screen here, the idea of a Facebook Live. They specifically mentioned Facebook Live is really going to get a boost because that really helps drive meaningful conversations. Like we're here on Facebook Live right now talking. So like if you're live, like give me an emoji or something, like give me a reaction, a thumbs up, like because Facebook's research is seeing that they're getting a lot more reaction, interaction, thoughtfulness, conversation, relationship building happening around Facebook Live. So it's really mentioned throughout the article here that they're going to give that even more of a boost because that's what it really highlights the benefits of the platform. So I really want to encourage church leaders and pastors to think about making the leap and doing more live. Now, some of us immediately think, oh, Facebook Live, that means our church is streaming our service live. And yes, there's a place for that. And let me just say, if you're streaming your services live, I think you're going to have to think through what this change means for you. And I think you're going to have to think through your live stream is how can you do things to encourage conversation during your service via to Facebook Live. So you might include in part of your service time a conversation time where you say, hey guys, and this would kind of be like maybe, you're used to a pastor saying, hey, turn to your neighbor and say, get ready. That's the old T.D. Jakes. I love his phrase, get ready, get ready. Anyway, and a lot of pastors do that, but you might say, hey, why don't you turn to your neighbor and ask them, such and such and do a conversation kind of starter piece and say, and if you're watching us on Facebook Live, why don't you start that conversation as well? And you can do that in the sermon. You can do that throughout your service. You can do that before service. Like you could kick off your Facebook Live, like pre-service, like the 3 minutes, like at Summit Park Church, we do like a 3-minute countdown. Or maybe part of that is actually facilitating the conversation on your Facebook Live before your service starts. So like, hey, today we're going to be talking about how to make this an incredible year. So in the comments below, why don't you put your top goal for 2018? And let's get that conversation going. If you're here in the auditorium, why don't you turn to your neighbor and talk about one goal? We're going to get started here in a couple minutes, and we'll see you here with worship going to be started here in a few minutes. And let's kick this off. And so now what you've done is throughout your whole service, you're priming conversations, right? And so that's going to drive into the Facebook algorithm and could be, again, huge. So I think you're going to have to think through what you've been doing through the lens of conversation and not just streaming live just to be live. I do think there is a huge opportunity still with doing live because when you're trying to reach people in your community to get more people interested in your church, and I was just talking with Josh Cook about this on one of our CMU episodes that we just recorded, and he was like, man, what churches need to be doing is they need to be encouraging people to start to be aware of them, know, like, and trust them. And that's the journey people go through. And that's really, I think, what you can do still on your Facebook page is get people to be aware of your church, get people to like your church, and then trust your church, and then show up. One of the churches I'm a part of, I just saw a message came in that said, we've been watching your Facebook Live for the last year, And would you let us know what else do you have stuff for kids and youth at your church? So here's somebody who's in the community, who's been kind of tiptoeing, watching, and now a year later they're saying, what do you have for me? We're interested in maybe coming and checking it out. That's the process of getting people to know, like, and trust you. But so I think there's a huge value to live. I think streaming your service live. I would encourage churches to think about kids content live, other things live outside of just your service, like get creative with it. And then let me also speak to church leaders and pastors, because this is the weirdest thing to me, is that church leaders and pastors are professional communicators. And they do this every single week. But for whatever reason, when you encourage them, like if you're a communications or creative director, you've probably run into this where you say to your pastor, like, let's do some live, let's have some fun with it. Like they get all nervous and like, I don't know, that's just not me. I'm not on social media. I don't love that. And I really want to encourage you with this change. Pastors and church leaders have to go and say, hey, you're a professional communicator. You've got a lot to say. You've got an incredible message. You've got to get used to doing that live with your people, building that community into your groups, on your page. Take what you're doing, take what God has put on your heart and the message that you have, and just look at live as another opportunity to do that with people. And quite frankly, your reach can be a whole lot greater than what you have in your church. And it blows my mind sometimes, like at Summer Park Church, we had a snow day last year and we had to cancel, and we just did a service live from an iPad in Pastor Scott's living room. And at the end of that service, we hit stop. It had showed almost 300,000 news feeds, right? Like 300,000 news feeds. We just did another church at home at the end of December, and I think it was something like 80,000 news feeds for that one. And you think through, oh my word, like the reach of that. Yes, like for a church, we will impact around maybe 1,500 people on a weekend, but like you could have a really incredible digital reach if you're smart about it. That could be much bigger than what you have in your service. So I think pastors and church leaders have to think through, the world is changing. And you have an incredible opportunity, but it's going to take, in this case, you can't approach it in the old ways. It's not good enough to just put a post out there or a picture of your great quote from that Sunday. Like that stuff is probably not going to be near its effective anymore. I know we love that and it was easy and the creative team could pull that one good quote and put it up there on the screen and put it out on Facebook. And it's really going to take a commitment, I think, on church leaders' part to say, hey, I'm going to be committed to this. I'm going to be willing to go live, try it out, get better with it. Let me also just say this. If you're in the creative space, one thing I would encourage you to think through is if you're doing like things like sermon series, I would encourage your team to think through what is going to be your creative component for that series, with this type of deal in mind of conversations, relationship building, where if you're planning something out, you think part of your team's job and responsibility is not just to come up with a cool, catchy title and the 5 messages, the passages. Part of it is like, how are you going to extend that conversation on social media through lives during the week, midweek live worship songs, getting creative, and then change that up each series, like where the next series, like, okay, what are we going to do this time to get that conversation going or in and around that series? Like that's what it's going to take for the church to get creative and take what they're doing during the weekend and make it effective on social media. You're going to have to get really creative with it and see the digital social side as an overflow, not just an afterthought. And again, it could be even more important than what's happening on your services. So I think there's still a place for your page. I don't think Facebook is dying. I think Facebook ads are going to be even more important. And I think the Facebook group is going to be really big as well. So let me jump back over to the old notes here. Live interaction, we've talked about that, getting conversations going. We've talked about how you can use your live to drive conversations you need to be thinking about. I would encourage you now as you think through your social media presence, like words, like just, and put them like on a big whiteboard or post-it note or sticky note or for your creative team, words like thoughtfulness, conversation, relationships. And before they hit post or publish on that social media, they need to think through, does this post help in one of these areas? Will it drive conversations? Will it Is it thoughtful? Is it relational? Will it help us build relational? And if it's none of that, hit delete. Do not hit publish, hit delete. If it is one of those, go for it. The other thing that you might have to do is start some sort of a team that helps you develop this, a volunteer team. And we've got another interview coming up here with Adam McLaughlin. We just released a brand new module inside Church Marketing University all about building volunteers, photography team, social media team, creative team, communications, live production, how you do all that. Adam's got some incredible ideas on how you build a team that actually builds itself. And I know it sounds too good to be true, but he's got some incredible ideas on how a team can be built to multiply naturally. So that'll be coming up here in a little bit, but you're going to have to think through now the digital side as empowering and building volunteers to help this and facilitate this type of conversation going on. So when you make a post and it is relational, it is thoughtful, it is conversational, then you're probably going to need some people in your church who facilitate that conversation. They get on, and if the post is about, man, what is your big goal for 2018? How can we as a church be praying for you? Let us know, because we want to pray for you. We want to hear what your goals are. And by the way, this week we're talking about this, so be sure you're here, but let us know so we can be praying about that. Then you're going to have to need some maybe volunteers that start that conversation, put their goals, start. So when somebody puts their goal of like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight, like I'm trying to lose, personal note, too much information coming up here. I've hit like 220 pounds. So I'm trying to get down to 200 pounds by July 1. So like one of my goals is exercise and getting healthy and doing 20 minutes of exercise every single day, even if it is negative like 9 degrees outside today. So that's one of my goals. But if somebody puts that in, it's like, hey, how can we encourage you? What's your plan? So your team is doing conversations. Anymore, like it's not good enough. Just if somebody's commenting on your social media presence and post, like that needs to be a conversation starter, not a stopper. Like if somebody says, what time is your service? You don't just say 10 a.m. this Sunday. You say, hey, our service is at 10 a.m. Is that going to work for you? They say, oh yeah, that's great. You reply back, hey, can we get your kids pre-registered online, right? So you see every interaction on social as a chance for a conversation, not like a question answered done. It has to be, you're going to have to mentally shift to comments and interactions on social is going to have to be all about conversation, relationship building, thoughtfulness, not just question answer done and expect it to work. So that's going to be a big deal as well. We talked about, I think this is actually going to be, could be a huge advantage for the local church over businesses because of the ability for the church to be close-knit, tight. People actually want to see your content. So again, you may think about like, yes, you could stream your services live, but what about doing some creative live elements like at your small groups or your life groups? So now think through if Facebook is a conversational platform, not an announcement platform, if it's the lobby and the coffee table, not the stage, okay? You have to think through that. Facebook is no longer your megaphone or your stage to just do announcements. Facebook is your coffee table and your lobby for relationships. So if that's the case, instead of going live from your stage, or maybe in addition to going live from your stage, go live from your small groups, right? Like, and show people eating nachos, having fun, like where people can see, oh man, this is cool, the life and the excitement and the what God is doing. And these are normal people. Again, it goes back to that whole deal. What Facebook wants to do is close-knit, tight community. And honestly, if you read Mark Zuckerberg's post, he talks a lot about how the research showed how this affects the well-being of people. Like they actually did studies on how this drives the health of people. And what they're saying is they found that if people are on social media and they're connecting with friends and family in a close, tight-knit community, it actually makes them healthier. But if they're on social media platforms and they're having these disengaged, like just scrolling, it actually makes them worse. It makes them unhealthy, which you could use that as a sermon illustration, read his deal. And it's kind of like a good promo for small groups and life groups. If you're doing life together and you're encouraging community, it's actually really healthy for people. And guess what? Facebook just found out a biblical truth that we've all known. And so you need to lean into that truth, lean into the strength of your church of building that close-knit community and showing that life on social media. That's going to be huge. And again, if you lean into that, think going live in people's homes and small groups and having fun with it, going on a journey. A few other words I like to talk about, encourage church leaders with, is think of real life people on an adventure. That you're not doing stock photos. You're not, it's focused on people, the life. It's going on a God-sized adventure. So like if you have a canned food drive coming up, your social media post is not a stock image of a Campbell's soup can. That's a loser. Your social media post is going live with a mother and daughter in the grocery store, and they're picking out food to bring on Sunday, and the mom's explaining to the daughter why they're doing this. And you're seeing the behind the scenes of why we care about people. And that's real. That's people life. That's real people. That's an adventure. That gives people ideas. That starts conversations like, oh, I need to take my kids. Like you have fun with it. That is the way we need to see social media, not like, oh, I just post a stock image of a Campbell soup can and I say, bring the can to church this Sunday, right? That's the old way, and that's no longer going to work. The new way is much more real life people on a God-sized adventure. And guess what? What is the Bible? When you look at the Bible, it's real people full of God's life on a crazy God-sized adventure. And that's awesome. That's perfect for social media. And let me also give you a hint. For millennials, that really resonates. If they interact with your church, because I know some of you are really, one of your goals is we really want to make headway into reaching younger families, millennials, people in that age group, then you really need to take notes on that and just think, man, what we need to do on social is a real life-size, God-sized adventure and have fun with it and show people that life. And millennials, younger people love that stuff. That stuff is perfect for social media as opposed to a stock photo or spamming people or telling people, like, don't tell people what they need to do. Show people why that would be so exciting to come be a part of that and going on an adventure with other people and be real with them. Like everything isn't, all nice and roses all the time. It's not all perfect. Like sometimes I think that keeps people from going live and doing well on social media is because you think, well, we just have to be perfect. And it's not perfect if I go live from my office. You're going to have to get over that, Pastor. You're going to have to get your cell phone out. You're going to have to get over that mental barrier, and you're going to have to try these things out. And you're not going to be good the first time you do it. About the time, probably the 500th time you go live, you're going to be like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, I'm so glad I did this discipline. And that's not going to come natural. And I really think that is part of the pastoring leadership of the future, is getting past that. So the last thing in the notes is probably stop scheduling and auto posting. Anything that's boring content is just going to be a loser deal. It's going to be a waste of time and energy. And so I think there's two really big takeaways. If your church is just going to say, hey, we're really only using Facebook as an announcement platform, then I would say shut it down and go to a group. If your church is saying, hey, we are committed to learning, I think this is a huge opportunity, I would build your group and move that way. Another question that came in was, should we go more to things like Google paid ads, email? And I would say this, I think as a marketer and the leader, you always have to have the kind of in your back of your mind, this idea, this conversation you'll hear in the marketing space of renting versus owning. And when it comes to platforms that you don't own, so Facebook, Google, you don't have really any control of what they do. So tomorrow, Facebook and all these people could delete all your content, delete your page, and you couldn't do anything about it. It's basically their platform that you rent, you're a part of. You don't own it. So I think there is a place to being a part of that, because that's where really, in a lot of respects, the people are in our culture. Like, people are there. They spend an incredible amount of time, and a ton of people, a large percentage in our community are there. So I think there's a place for, you need to be, you need to have rental properties, but you also need to be thinking, what is it that we own? And things like your website, email, text message. Those are the things that if Facebook shut down today, you would still own that, okay? And so you got to think, how do we leverage some of these rental properties to drive value to what we own? So you still need to build your email list. You still need to get people's phone numbers. You need to get people traffic to your website because you own that. And if all these things shut down tomorrow, you're fine because you have stuff that you own. And I'm a big fan of using both of those strategies as well. So, so I think that's a conversation. I don't think it's time to just abandon all rental properties. I would keep going with both, but I would know you've always got to be strategic because there's people out there that have spent the last 5 years building these mega pages. Like some businesses have tens of millions of followers and they just got told by Facebook that their reach is now the same as everybody else that doesn't even have a page. Zero. So unless that business or organization or nonprofit has been strategic about driving and getting emails, getting connections, building relationships, getting people on their websites, building, custom audiences, targeting, retargeting, pixeling, some other things, then you basically, your business essentially just got shut down. So let's jump in now to the questions. So I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. And let me just say this too. I don't pretend to have all the answers. I'm just one of a lot of different voices out here that really have a heart for the local church, that wants the church to win and wants the church to reach people. And I don't pretend to know everything. I follow a lot of smart people in the business world that use social media to make millions and billions of dollars. And my heart is, how can we leverage these tools for the kingdom of God to reach people for the church, not to make money. And I don't pretend to know it all. I just want to be one voice that is encouraging church leaders and say, this is what I think the future is, and this is how I think your church can capitalize on it. And this is also, to me, why I think the value of the Church Marketers group is because we have a ton of great leaders in there, and it's the value of multiple people saying, hey, we're thinking about this, or we just tried this and it was great, or we just tried this and it was a huge failure. And we're all going on this journey together, and we're all better together, and we all learn better. And that's what's great about Facebook groups is it's the body of Christ that can come together and say, hey, guess what, guys? This is what's working. This is what's not working. Try this. Don't try that. Here's some ideas. And we're all better together, which is a huge benefit over everything else in our society, because most businesses would approach this as like, we're not telling people our secrets. We're not telling people what's working, but the kingdom of God can all come together and say, hey, this is what's working. This is how to do it. So that's why I love the Church Marketers group. And I just want to throw out a disclaimer, like, I'm not pretending to know all the answers. That's why I love the group. And if you're not in the group, be sure you guys get over into that group. So let's try to do some questions now, if I can. So if you've got questions, put those in the comments below. And again, there's probably a ton of smart people on here that are smarter than me. So if you are on here like Adam and Tim and Michael and Kenny and guys like Tyler Smith, Texan Church, Daniel Ermler, all those type of guys, like if you see them replying to some of your questions, know that these guys are really super valuable thought leaders that have a heart for the church as well, and can help you as well. So let's jump over to the questions. So let's see if we can see these. How would you differ posts from Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat? I think, Josh, that's a great question. I think all of those platforms, you have to understand, they all kind of traffic in the same idea, very similar research. And Facebook owns Instagram. So typically what happens on the Facebook platform is eventually going to make its way over to Instagram. And so I think the big idea is to understand the principles and then apply the principles to each platform. So I think if you understand the idea of social media is more social, less media, right? More social, less announcements, conversation, thoughtfulness, relationship building. And then what you need to do is see how that you can extend that on the different platforms. I'm a big believer of developing up volunteers and volunteer teams. We're going to be talking about that with Adam McLaughlin. I like the idea of getting a point person for each platform. and training them. And like if you have somebody in your church that has a heart for the church and is great, is rocking it at Instagram or doing phenomenal things on Snapchat, they're already good. They already kind of know the feel and the flavor of those platforms. Now what you need to do is connect them with what you're trying to accomplish in the church, the relationships that you want to build, empower them, and let them. And I know this is could be a little bit dangerous. A lot of churches want to hold everything close, but I think that idea is really going to fight against where social is going, where you can, yes, empower people, train them, have style guides, have branding guides, communication guides that help you and have feedback, but you're going to have to empower people on these platforms and turn them loose. But I think regardless of the platform, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it, the idea is understand the principle and then let it train people up and empower them to live out the mission of the church, equip the saints for doing the work of the ministry. And part of that is on their digital marketing and social media. So I think that is really important. Amy's asking what type of equipment is okay to use for live feeds. Amy, I would encourage most churches to just start honestly with their phone and iPad. You can use desktop now, you can go live. But I think most churches just getting started, and this is where I would encourage pastors to think through not necessarily only putting in the box of, oh, we stream our services live, we're good, checkbox. I think they need to think through how do they go live with their phones, with an iPad tablet and show behind the scenes, right? So on Friday, if you're coming out of your study day, go live and talk about what God has put on your heart, why people should care to be there that Sunday. Give them behind the scenes of how you've been praying. You're praying for them and you really have a heart and you really feel like God has a word and message for them. Give them a little bit of feel what that's going to look and feel like, why they should care, and do that from your phone. So I think I really want to encourage churches to think first about kind of the micro live. That's just micro live. That's just a word, random, just came up with it. But I think first about micro live and then think streaming live next. And there's churches that honestly, we did this a couple early on at like Summit Park Church. We had a couple people that started out like one person was like, hey, I'm sick today. And is there any possible way you could stream the service? Because I really wanted to be there. And honestly, like one time, I think we just set iPad out and out of respect to that person and went live. And there's some churches that just literally stream live from a phone and from an iPad. So I don't think sometimes you have to make it that complicated. I think you can try some of these things out. But then if you're wanting the full setup, like I use tools like Ecamm, like Be Live, some other things. We have a whole course that Daniel Ermler from Church Hero has allowed to put inside Church Marketing University that goes through all the setup, the equipment list, how to do it for like $1,500. If you want to go like the full on live production with a cheap budget, I would encourage you guys to jump in the Easter module. You can get in the Easter module for free right now. And then here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be opening up every single module of Church Marketing University to the people in the Easter module. So that means for a short period of time, you'll be able to get in and kick around the live production module as well. And you can see like the setups, the cameras, things like the OBS software or Livecast or your OTIM switcher, all that sort of stuff. If you're in that space, you know how it can kind of get pretty complicated. So that answer, if you're talking about really going full on and having kind of like a studio, then I would say jump into that Easter module and then check out the live production when that kind of opens it up. So let me see if I can pick out some Sunday streams work with Facebook Live. Yep, check it out. We currently give just announcements. Want to convince the pastor to have conversation on Facebook. Can you give a few quick ideas? Yeah, Shane, I think that's really big and again, we have a lead pastor module inside CMU that really walks through the mind of the lead pastor and tries to encourage them, because I think one of the frustrations for a lot of creatives is they are like, oh man, how do I convince my lead pastor that this is important? So that module helps walk through the lead pastor, the shift in communications. Brady Shear, I know from Pro Church Tools, has a lot of good stuff on this, talking to lead pastors. Like the world is changing. And so they've got to get over that mental block of this is totally different. And I think there's ways that you can do that. We talk a lot about finding the strengths of your lead pastor and leveraging that on digital. So the lead pastor doesn't have to feel like digital is totally different than everything else. Like, so if your pastor is great at devotional thoughts, then I would say on Monday morning or Monday afternoon, typically most pastors have about 8 points of a sermon, and they've had to cut it down to 3. What if they picked one of the points from the sermon that was their favorite that they had to cut out, and you go live on Monday afternoon, and they give that 4th point as a little bit more content. It was something that ties into what was talked about in the weekend, but it's a little bit new content, and it helps people continue that conversation in their prayers, devotional throughout the week. I think that's great to do in your Facebook group, and that is kind of like the Monday morning leftovers. Okay, if your pastor is not great on camera, then get somebody who is great on camera and do like a question interview type approach. So the person that's big, that's good, that's gifted on camera can bring out life and can do kind of a Q&A. If your pastor just says no, then maybe I would say, how can you leverage other talent in the church if your leadership is okay with this? So people who are good on camera, who can tell stories, that could do interviews. You could have your worship leader on Wednesday do midweek worship. Red Rocks Church, a church that kind of have a church crush on them, if you will. I think we all have churches like that. They do occasionally some very low-key midweek worship. Just your worship leader doing like a 15 minutes live, nothing super produced, but just gives people a time to worship midweek live, maybe on their lunch break, sitting in their cubicle, just praising and worshiping. So you can utilize other talent and gifting. Stories, I can't believe I've gotten this far into this and haven't talked about stories, but stories are going to be absolutely huge. Sharing stories, doing interviews with people, again, some of the words I talked about, conversation, relationship, I can't believe I didn't mention stories, add the word stories in there, but I would try to emphasize those things and have that dialogue. Again, if your pastor needs some more encouragement, get in that Easter module, and then once that lead pastor module opens up, maybe have them watch through it. And my goal in that deal was to help really convince lead pastors to go this direction with their church, with digital and social, and how to think through how to work with the pastors, how pastors work with creatives, how creatives can work with pastors, let me just encourage you, the goal of your creative team is not to fight against your pastor. It's to work with your pastor to think through what is the mission and vision of your church, and how does social media and digital marketing help accomplish that. And honestly, if you go to them with, hey, pastor, I know it's really big on your heart that people get into small groups. Like, find out what is huge on your pastor's heart, what is big, and then tie in how the digital and social can help accomplish what God has put on the heart of your leadership. If you go at that approach, that's where you can say, pastor, I know your heart is to get everybody into small groups. What if, I've got an idea, what if we had you showing up at different small groups for the series on small groups? Every week we go to a different small group and we have fun, we show why it matters, and you go live from the small group. Now they're saying you're talking kind of the vision love language of the pastor, and that's a different conversation than saying, man, I just hate my leadership because they won't try these things out, okay? And I know that's a little bit of hyperbole, but I would encourage you to think through that. So more question. I'm having a little bit of trouble. I might have to either do a follow-up on this or go in through the comments, because our next live on volunteers is coming up here shortly. But how often do you suggest to go live during a normal week? Let me give you a principle on that, Michael, to think through. When a lot of people ask the question, how often to do X, Y, or Z, the question is, as long as it is effective, go and do more until it's not effective. And then, so a lot of social is experimentation. And that's why I like tying your social to your series, because every series you can experiment with a new approach. And then you've got to evaluate it. Did it go well? And if so, do more. If you're doing more and you're seeing your interaction keep going down, then dial it back. But there's no right cookie cutter answer. The answer, I think, is through trial and error. And that's why I really would encourage you to think through, try things based on the series. So if you're doing a series, again, like all about worship, then try that series every single Wednesday on that series. Do a live worship set with one of your leaders, a cappella or with guitar, and just try it. Did it work once a week during that worship series? then evaluate and adjust and do more or less of that. If it didn't work at all, then the next series, guess what? You're not going to do a live worship set every midweek. You're going to have the ability to flex, and now you're going to try Monday, leftovers with the senior pastor. And let's say, oh, that took off. Okay, well, the next series you might keep Monday with the Passover, the leftovers with the pastor, and then try something else. So I think churches have to have the freedom to innovate and try things. And I think all too often we try to kind of get into our rhythm, and that's what we do. And you've got to try things and mix things up with social media. Man, great stuff. If you've got questions, maybe you're watching the replay, keep putting those there. What I'll do is I'll do a follow-up live. So I'll try to copy all the questions, and then I'll just do one live where we answer all those questions, where that's all we do. I might bring on some other thought leaders in the space to give their take on this as well. So, and I've missed a ton of questions. So if you're watching this, please, put your questions. Also, would you help maybe share this with a couple of people in the church leadership? Again, our heart is to really help churches win at this. I don't want churches shutting down their Facebook presence because they heard the sky is falling. I think this is a huge opportunity. So that would be a big honor to me. And then if you want more, again, a couple of ways you can connect with us. We run a blog, socialchurch.co. We run a resource called Church Marketing University, where we just launched Rethinking Easter, all about helping churches make Easter the best they've ever had. We'll help you get a plan together to promote it, but more importantly, we'll help it leverage it into big long-term impact. So I'd encourage you to go to churchmarketinguniversity.com/Easter. Jump in there. You'll get a free video series. You'll get all that module. And then, like I said, we're going to open up all of CMU to everybody going through, because we want people, if they're planning out their Easter, to understand how to do ads, how to do email marketing, how to do text message, how to do social media organic, what you need to do on your website. And so we're going to, for a limited time, open up all of CMU for free to those people in the Easter module, so you can build out your Easter strategy. So churchmarketinguniversity.com/Easter, and we can go deeper there. We're going to be doing some lives in and through that. So, man, I think this is actually exciting news. So hopefully you guys are actually more pumped up about reaching people on social than ever before, if you're committed to going the route that I think it actually is great for the local church. So I'm praying for you guys. Thanks for jumping on, and stay tuned. We'll do a follow-up live with all your questions. So keep putting those, and we'll try to get to those as soon as possible. So God bless, guys.